Hiya everyone, I'm Jamie and this is my Fall Guys Season 1 rounds tier list. I figured with Season 2 coming out tomorrow, I would rank all the Season 1 games in order of my personal preference and just explain why I've put every game where I have put it. Okay, so starting with F tier, no one will be surprised to see that I have Fruit Shoot, given that, one of my most viewed videos on this channel is my petition to remove Fruit Shoot video. Yeah, I hate Fruit Shoot. Just to put it simply, I really hate this game. It feels mostly just chance as to whether you get through this level or not. There is a strategy that basically everybody employs, where you start off in the center and you quickly change track to either the left or the right, and you go up hiding behind all those pink things. There are 3 up the right and 3 up the left. And basically you just hope that you don't get hit by a stray piece of fruit, because there's very little you can do to avoid it if it's going to hit you. And some of the bits of fruit just seem to bounce randomly, or they could bounce off the pink things, they could bounce off people's heads, they can bounce off people's prone bodies, and there's just no way to really know exactly where they're going to go. And if most of the time, if you try to avoid a piece of fruit, you will go so far off course trying to avoid it that you might as well have just been hit by it. Which basically boils down to it being chance. You hold forward, you go up the set path that everybody decides to go up, and yeah, it's just chance as to whether you get through it or not. Chance as to whether things hit you or whether they don't, and I hate it. I hate it. When this level comes up, I'm just sad. And if I'm playing with friends and I die the previous round and it comes up, I'm so glad I'm dead. And that's how much I just despise this game. And accompanying Fruit Shoot in the F tier, I have put Tail Tag. Mostly because this game has a 1 minute 30 second length, and it can be won or lost in the last second. And it doesn't seem to matter what you do for the rest of the match. I have spent the last, I don't know how many times, recently, I've just started in Tail Tag, standing there and taunting until about 15 seconds are remaining, at which point I find somebody who has a tail, stay close to them without taking it, and then just press the grab button when there is 1 second left of the game. They cannot get their tail back, and I qualify. And I just think that's stupid. That person could have got that tail from the beginning and had 1 minute 29 seconds holding onto that tail, evading capture and outplaying other players. But for the last second, I was in possession of the tail. Therefore, I was deemed the better player and I went through. And I don't think that's fair, and I think this game is silly. Okay, so moving up to the D tier, first I have put Perfect Match for the sheer reason that this game is boring. Just to be clear, when I say this game is boring, I mean I think it's boring. I just don't want to spend the whole time saying I think I feel in my view. So I'm just going to speak like that. Most of the time in Perfect Match, I just end up trying to make my own fun by just diving between the tiles or trying to throw people off or just doing something more fun than what the game is telling me to do, which is memorize tiles. Because a lot of the time, I don't even need to memorize tiles because I'll just go to where the largest clump of people are when the actual matching takes place, and if all those people are wrong, fair enough, then we all die. If they're not, which is more often than not the case, then I get through. I've put Perfect Match in D tier rather than F for the sheer fact that it's easy and you can progress from it pretty easily. You don't have a big struggle getting through it. It's not based on luck or the last second of the game. It's a relatively easy obstacle to get through. It's just really boring. Next we have Jinxed, and I've put this here and it kind of starts a trend of team games where having a bad team can break my enjoyment of the game. I've put Jinxed a bit lower than the rest of them because it suffers from very bad hitboxes and latency and stuff like that, in that you can jinx somebody or you can be jinxed by somebody from seemingly miles away, and you can avoid being jinxed when it really seems like you should have been jinxed. I feel like it suffers a lot from lag and latency issues, and also the idea that all of your team can get jinxed very easily, leaving you on your own being chased down by by a vast majority of the other team. Rock and roll is next, and it heavily depends on the team you get. I've got an example from my girlfriend. She was on a team playing rock and roll, and the entirety of her team left. They just left. They ran to the end, and they tried to disrupt other teams pushing their balls towards the end, and left my girlfriend to push the ball by herself. This is impossible when you get to a certain point. When you get to the very end of the corridor thing, I can't think what to call it, but when you get to the end of the place, you can't push it over the lip. You can't do it. You can't do it when you're on your own. You can't push it over. You need at least 3 people there to even get your ball down to the lower bit. So given the entirety of my girlfriend's team just abandoned her and left her to do it by herself, meant that it was impossible. They were out. The moment the rest of her team dropped down off the raised bit of the level and down onto the ramp at the bottom, that was it. The team had lost. And this can happen quite a lot in rock and roll, where your team just completely abandon you to go and do the relatively inconsequential task of trying to stop the other people at the finish ramp before the end zone. If you all stay behind the ball and kind of just maneuver it very quickly down that first corridor thing and down onto the ramp, you can win and get through before any of the nonsense at the end ramp. Next we have Hoarders, and if you don't have a team that understands that if you get 2 balls, defend the 2 balls with your life. You don't need to go to people's areas, the other team's areas, and start stealing balls. The 2 balls you have, this is sounding innuendoous at every turn, the 2 balls you have are enough balls, just defend them. You don't need to abandon your team's area to go and steal from the other team's area if you have 2 balls. If you have none, then yeah, by all means, go and steal some other teams. But if you have 2, defend them. That's it. You only need 2 to get through. If you're like really wanting fame and you want a gold, then fair enough. But just know that if you do that, you will abandon your team and you'll probably end up getting eliminated rather than getting the gold. But yeah, this can lead to a lot of frustration in Hoarders, and often you feel when you go out it wasn't your fault. Finally, in this list of frustrating team games, we have Team Tail Tag. Now, I have said in the past that Team Tail Tag is worse than Tail Tag because it's everything wrong with Tail Tag and everything wrong with team games, just crammed into one. But Team Tail Tag is actually better, I think, because it erases most of the main issues I have with Tail Tag. Mostly because the team aspect balances it out. Like, you can stalk somebody at the end and try and get a tail if you want, but you can't guarantee that the rest of your team will keep their tails or that the numbers will stay the same. All you can guarantee is that you have a tail at the end. I prefer it to the other team games I've mentioned, mainly because there is a kind of strategy that you can employ with it. There are a few actually. You can, for example, follow somebody on your team that has a tail and try and make sure that nobody on the opposing teams takes that person's tail. You can just kind of act as their bodyguard. You can, if somebody is having trouble on your team getting a tail, if you notice this, you can give them your tail and you can go and take somebody else's. The map itself is quite large and has a lot of variety with some hammers and some like treadmill areas, lots of ramps, lots of higher levels, just stuff like it's just a lot more. This feels like there's a lot more going on than in some of these other team games, and especially Tail Tag. It's still not great because it still has a lot of the issues of Tail Tag and team games in general, whereas if like your team are just not performing very well and you feel that you are performing very well, or you in fact are performing very well and you still go out and it wasn't your fault, that can be very frustrating. But all in all, I think it's more enjoyable than the rest of the team games I don't like. Moving up to the C tier, I start the C tier with Gate Crash. Now, I've said before that I think it should be called DoorDash, but I'm not going through that again, so let's just start explaining why I put it in C tier. First off, I want to talk about the problems I have with this game, which is mainly other players and the twisters. I feel like Gatecrash is designed to be a kind of timing-based pattern learning round, where you look at the doors, how they're going up, how they're going down, like the timing of them as you're approaching them, and then you decide which one you're going to jump over and you make the jump. I feel like sometimes you'll go for the jump and somebody else will knock you out of the way with their jump. And I don't think that's anything you can plan for or account for or kind of counter against. It's just going to happen. You're going to get stuck when the door comes back up and you're not going to be able to make it through. And this can sometimes happen even when you're not, you know, in a big crowd of players. You also have to account for the twisters that move along in front of the doors. And sometimes you just can't account for that because when you have to pick the fastest, most efficient route through to get to the end before other players. So you're going to learn the pattern as you approach the doors, and then the one that's down when you're going to get there is the one you're going to go for. If the twister is in front of that door at the time, or is going to be, and knocks you out of the way, you have to pick the slowest route, and it's frustrating, and I picked a really long-winded way of saying that, but yeah, that. Also, another problem that I think is present in this game, as is present with the next 3 in the list, is that if you, say, make a mistake on 1 or 2 doors, like you don't get through them, you get hit by a twister, you get messed up by someone's hitbox, you don't time your jump right, you're probably not going to go through because the course is relatively short. However, this game's still more fun than anything in D or F tier. Next I've put DoorDash, and the first problem I have with DoorDash is it feels very luck-based if you want to win. You have to guess which door is the breakable one in each track if you want to get through them all first. You can kind of hang around at the back and maybe you'll get lucky, and then like the first few people will mess up and you can just jump through the right door, or you can dive over them at the end. But basically, if you want to win this game, you're going to have to be very lucky. It also suffers very heavily from what I call like the Mr. Burns disease door effect, where I don't know if you've seen that episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns goes to the doctors and they tell him that he's got basically every disease ever. But because they're all in his body trying to kill him at once, they can't quite do it. And the doctor uses an example of a door, and he grabs all these little fluffy toys that represent germs and tries to push them all through the door at once, and they can't all get through, and they jam themselves up in the door. And that is a thing that happens very often with the correct door on DoorDash. All the beans will just try and jump through it, and just nobody will get through it because they're all trying to get through it at once. Next I put Seesaw, and Seesaw can be 2 very, very different games based on whether you're at the front or whether you're at the back. Now, when you're at the front, it's basically just a leisurely jump across just immobile platforms. Most of the time, if you're at the front on Seesaw, you can just run over the seesaws while they're relatively horizontal and just basically just have a lovely walk all the way to the end. It's very easy, it's very boring, but if you're at the back, it's a whole different story. When you're at the back, most of the seesaws you come across will be already at a 90-degree angle, completely vertical. You won't be able to jump until you wait for them to level out again. Most of the ones you go to jump on and start to move up, other people will jump on after you, and it will slowly go to a 90-degree angle and you'll fall off. A lot of the times you'll be stuck on a seesaw waiting for the next seesaw to stop being 90 degrees, or at least get to a point where you can jump from your seesaw onto the new seesaw. And it's a whole different story of frustration and just waiting and getting stuck when you're at the back as opposed to the front. Next is Hit Parade, for the main reason that it's just too short. There's nothing you can really do if you make a mistake, because there's no time to make up for your mistake, because the map's just too short. It doesn't really have any shortcuts. It doesn't really have any way for you to make up for mistakes. It's kind of just a straightforward obstacle course where if you don't do the obstacle course 100% correctly, you're probably going to go out. and it's just not very fun whenever Hit Parade appears. And at the top of C tier, I've put Royal Fumble. This may seem a bit of a weird choice because it's basically tail tag with less players, but I think that's what makes Royal Fumble so much more enjoyable than tail tag, because there are so fewer players. It still suffers from the same problem as tail tag itself, that you can wait for the last 30 seconds of the game and then you can start trying to get yourself the tail. However, with there only being one tail and everybody trying to get it, the dynamic's a little bit different. Like in tail tag, you can find one person, you can identify one person who doesn't seem to be really know what they're doing. They can be running around the outside, they can be standing in a very not defendable place, and you can go up and you can steal their tail a second before the end. But in Royal Fumble, it's a final. So the person who has the tail is probably on high alert, they're probably quite good at the game to have gotten this far, and oftentimes they know the map, they know the mechanics, they know how to avoid grabs, so just stuff like that, that it's not as easy to grab a tail at the last second. And if you do try something like that, you're going to have to do it in the last millisecond of the game, or somebody else, one of the 4 or 5 people who is also trying to grab the tail, will grab you in the last frame of the game and steal the tail. Like, that strategy just isn't as viable on Royal Fumble as it is on tail tag, and that's what makes Royal Fumble more interesting. Moving up to the B tier, we start with Block Party. There's not really much to say about Block Party, it's just a really standard avoid the obstacles and try not to die kind of level. It's the obstacles come towards you, you move out the way or you jump out of the way, you survive until the end and you're through. It's not particularly exciting, but it doesn't have any real problems either, despite the fact that you can sometimes get stun locked by the low platforms that you have to jump over. But apart from that, there's really nothing wrong with Block Party. It's not the most exciting, but it's fine. Next we have Tiptoe. Now, my enjoyment of Tiptoe can be heavily influenced by the amount of players that are put in the game. So if there's, say, 11 people or something like that, it can be fun. You just jump around, see which tiles are roughly the correct ones, make a few wild jumps, try and get towards the last third, and then you start inching your way towards the end. Whereas if there are, say, 20 people on Tiptoe, it can become a frustrating nightmare of just pushing and shoving and getting thrown into the ether for seemingly no reason. Because there is always a certain point on Tiptoe where most players are just congregated on one tile, and while that is kind of okay for 11 players, it's still a bit, trying to stay on, breaking your analog stick to just try and stay on this square. It is almost impossible when you have 20 people vying for the same square, and sometimes the game trying to get that many hitboxes on one place, it will just ping. It will just the pressure will become too much and it will just ping you off into the ether, and then you'll have to walk all the way from the start, at which point somebody's probably got pushed onto the right tile and you can just see everyone qualifying in front of you and there's nothing you can do about it. Ultimately, with the right amount of players, I think Tiptoe is strategic, exciting and really fun. Next we have Jump Club, and it's just another one of those games like Block Party that's not horrible, it's not amazing, it's just kind of middle of the road. It's okay, it's a fun casual little time. Like most of the time, if you keep an eye on where the green arm is and where the pink arms are, and jump at the right time and make sure you don't get stuck when there's a point where the green is in line with one of the pink arms. Basically, if you just pay attention and jump at the right time, you're going to get through. It's not particularly difficult, there's nothing really wrong with it, just fine. Now I've put Jump Showdown next because while it's added the more exciting element to Jump Club, that there are 2 arms on the bottom and 2 arms at the top as opposed to 1 arm on the bottom and 2 arms on the top, it has also added an RNG element that makes it kind of frustrating at times. This is the change that at certain intervals the platforms you're standing on will shake and drop away. This mechanic can sometimes maroon you on an island that then falls, because all the ones in the middle of the ring have fallen out, and there's 2 on one side and there's 1 on your side. Now either one of the ones on the other side can drop or your one can drop, and it's just completely random as to which one falls. Which means due to bad luck alone, you can lose the finale and therefore lose the crown, because Jump Showdown is a finale. So while in some ways Jump Showdown is a more exciting version of Jump Club, that RNG element kind of just has a negative effect on it, and it can make it kind of frustrating when the RNG works against you. Next I put rollout, and it's another one of those like Jump Club and Block Party where if you pay attention to the level, pay attention to the rolls that you're on, and make sure you stay on one that is stay on an area of it that is staying up and not going into the slime, then you're probably going to get through this level and it's going to be pretty easy. However, I've put this further up than those two because there is an alternate playstyle of rollout where you try and murder people, where you just try to grab people at the right time and push them off the rolls into the slime, and I think that adds another level of fun to this particular one that Jump Club and Block Party don't have. It's not enough of a difference to move it out of B tier because sometimes that playstyle can just get you killed, but it is a level of fun that you can have and just elevates it slightly above Jump Club and Block Party in that it's very similar to those, but it just has that extra element in it. At the top of B tier, I have put Fall Mountain, and if we were to like personify these levels, I would imagine that Fruit Shoot had a poster of Fall Mountain on its wall while it was growing up in its bedroom, and it was dreaming that one day it would be Fall Mountain, and it never achieved its dreams, and now it's sad and spends all the time just staring at this old poster that it used to have of Fall Mountain, just thinking of what could have been if it had just made different choices. Yeah, that thought pattern kind of got away from me there. But yeah, Fall Mountain is running up a hill as obstacles are coming down towards you. Except in Fall Mountain, you're not on a treadmill, and all of the items coming down at you, for the most part, are spherical, so you know how they're going to bounce, how they're going to roll, how they're going to move when they're hit by an obstacle, because, you know, spheres are very predictable like that, which is why they're good for being launched at you from a distance. Fall Mountain also has spinning doors and spinning hammers and those twister things that appear on Gate Crash, basically because it's an obstacle course that is also a finale, so it's just a more difficult obstacle course where if you make a single mistake, you're probably not going to win. And while this is frustrating in Hit Parade because it's quite an early game round, I think it's okay in Fall Mountain because Fall Mountain is a finale, and if you make a mistake and you don't win, then you're like, yeah, fair enough, but then you can just go into the next one. But if you make a mistake in Hit Parade and you go out, then you're going out in like the first round, which is vastly more frustrating. Ultimately, Fall Mountain is like a lot of the ones in this round, where it's not too offensive, it's not thrilling, it's just fine. I don't mind it when Fall Mountain comes up, it's okay, I guess. Now we move up into the A tier with Hexagon. Now Hexagon's a weird one for me because I absolutely suck at it, but I think it's still fun. Now, I mainly on Hexagon will jump all the way down to the bottom and just try and knock out as many tiles as possible, while leaving a few for myself to slowly jump between. But oftentimes, like, yeah, the strategy doesn't work, but I have fun. Hexagon is the main reason I wish there was a way to practice the individual rounds without having to, you know, play and just hope they show up, because I really want to practice Hexagon and see if I can get better at it and try and learn some of the strategies for it. But I have to play so much to get Hexagon. I have to get all the way to the final and have that final show up to get to play it. And then it's just like, how do you practice that? I love the strategy that is employed in Hexagon. I love how you have to manage how many tiles you've got left on a certain level and be looking down to the next level to see where you want to drop down based on what tiles are left on that level. You have to watch out for other players and even potentially plan your course to cut them off if you can. I just think there's a lot of strategy going on with Hexagon, and I love the idea of it. It's up here because I like the idea of it, and not that I can actually, you know, do any of it. Move on. I like Hexagon, but I can't do it. Next in A tier, we have Egg Scramble. And I might confuse some people with putting Egg Scramble this high, considering I complained about a lot of other team games for being ruined when you have a bad team. But when you have a good team, Egg Scramble is so good that I just had to put it this high. Yeah, when you have a bad team, Egg Scramble can be very, very frustrating, because you'll be trying to most likely defend your basket of eggs as other players come in and try and steal them, and your team is nowhere to be found, mostly just messing around in other people's baskets trying to steal their eggs. while you're fruitlessly trying to defend yours on your own, and it can be very, very frustrating. However, when you have a good team, egg scramble can be so much fun. Like, for example, I play with my girlfriend and one of my best friends, and when we're like talking to each other over Discord and we can like coordinate, we are so good at defending the basket. So we'll start at the beginning, we'll get a load of eggs, we'll put them in the basket, and then the three of us will stand at the top, like just like on the first step as you look into the basket, and we will just defend the basket at all costs. Like, somebody will have the middle and the other two will have the sides. And we played a game once where we were defending the basket so well and nobody could get any eggs out of that basket that literally one player just jumped out, looked at us, and just started emoting over and over again in the way that they were just like, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, well done. Well played. So yeah, the basis of that is I don't like egg scramble in solo queue, but I really like it when I'm on Discord with my friends. That's why I like egg scramble so much, because I only play this game with friends. Next we have Dizzy Heights, and I think this is one of the two perfect openers for a game. Like, when this round shows up first, or the whirly gig, it's just the perfect way to start. Dizzy Heights is a long obstacle course with many different sections. If you make a mistake in one section, you can make it up in the next. There are a few shortcuts you can learn, a few like optimal ways to move through the level, and I feel like it's just what an obstacle course should be. It rewards you for knowing the obstacle course and knowing the quickest route through it. And also it has one of the best places for a big Yeetus to spawn. And you know from my last video how much I love big Yeetus. I love it. It shows up right at the top of the ramp towards the last part of the level, and if you use it, you can get yeeted to just in front of the finish line. It's such a good big Yeetus. It's probably the best implementation of big Yeetus, and it's so good. I love Dizzy Heights. I just love Dizzy Heights. The whirly gig is just above Dizzy Heights at the top of A tier, because I feel like it just does what Dizzy Heights does a little bit better. So yeah, there are more shortcuts, it's slightly longer, I think. Like, you have the shortcut at the start where you can blast up the ramp, jump and dive, and skip out that whole bit where you have to climb up the boxes. You have the obvious shortcut right somewhat in 2/3 through, where if you go up the right side of a moving ramp, you can just squeeze through the fast spinning propeller and miss out a lot of the map that way. There's the skip right at the end, where if you stand in the right place, one of the spinning arms will hit you through the propeller at the end, and you will be about halfway up the ramp to qualify. It basically, yeah, it does everything Dizzy Heights does, just that little bit better. And when I see either the whirly gig or Dizzy Heights as the start of a game, I'm just so happy. It's the perfect way to start. They are the perfect 60-player obstacle course race tracks. Next we move up into S tier, and we start with Hoopsy Daisy. Now in Hoopsy Daisy, I just love the strategy of just patrolling a certain area and trying to get every hoop that spawns in that area. So I mostly go to one of the ends where the two ramps almost meet in the middle. You can go up one ramp, jump across, go down the other ramp, and I patrol that area and try to get every hoop that spawns in that area that I can. I feel like what I enjoy most about Hoopsy Daisy is just the mechanical aspect of it, like the inputs, just like the platforming of jumping around the map, trying to put the right inputs in so you go through the hoop instead of banging on the side or just missing it completely. I just feel like it's hard to describe. I've just been sitting here trying to figure out why I like Hoopsy Daisy so much and why I love it so much when it pops up. It's just the fun of just flying through the hoops. Am I really that easily entertained? There is also a strategy aspect to it, where if you're, say, on Discord with some friends, you can say, okay, I've got this area, you get that area, you get that area, and together we'll make sure that we get most of these hoops. And it's just got a extra strategy to it that kind of gets lost when you're playing solo queue, but mostly it's still just fun to fly through hoops. That's all it takes to impress me, apparently. I don't know, I just love Hoopsy Daisy. Next, at the top of S tier, we have Slime Climb, because I feel it's the ultimate obstacle course. I just find the platforming in Slime Climb just so fun. Like, all the different obstacles it manages to cram into it, all the different like aspects of the game that you have to navigate. Like, it brings in the swinging balls, the hammers, pistons, slime. It just brings everything into one, and like, there we go, deal with it at once. Like, falling balls, everything, just deal with it. Like, there is so much to learn in Slime Climb. There's shortcuts to learn, there's like optimal methods to do every single bit, there's loads of bits for if you want to do it. Kill people, there's loads of options to do that in Slime Climb, loads of like places you can stand, like slime to push people into and make sure they die, if you're, you know, into that kind of Satanism. The one problem I have with Slime Climb is that sometimes it can suffer from the same thing that happens in Tiptoe, where, you know, when I said everyone's stuck on the same platform, and sometimes the game will just snap and you'll get pinged off just a little bit and you'll fall off. That can happen in Slime Climb and push you into an obstacle that then pushes you into the slime. And that's the frustrating part of Slime Climb, because sometimes when you're waiting for an obstacle, waiting for an optimal time to move on, there can be loads of people waiting there with you, and you get pinged into the obstacle and you're done. You don't even get to play the rest of the level. Yeah, that's it, you're done. Not through any fault of your own, just through the sheer amount of players in one place. Slime Climb is another game that really makes me want a practice option in Fall Guys, so I can just go into an empty version of this course and just practice it. Because a lot of the time when it comes up, I'll be trying to get through an obstacle and the other people just make it impossible to do it properly. And I feel if I could go into a practice mode and learn the shortcuts, I could get ahead where there are fewer people and, you know, actually be able to do the climb properly without getting murdered by people's hitboxes. But either way, I really like Slime Climb. It is my second favourite round in this entire game, only beaten out by one other game. And that game is 4-Ball. The only game in my double S tier. There is nothing in the game itself that can ruin a game of 4-Ball for me. I don't know what it is. I just always have fun whenever I am playing a game of 4-Ball. I can lose 14-0 and I'm like, that was fun. I don't know, I just always have fun in 4-Ball and I can't put it anywhere else than SS tier, because it is the only round in this game that I have fun no matter what. I can have bad teammates, I can get stuck with lag, anything. Nothing can ruin 4-Ball. I always enjoy it. I don't even really watch actual football, but I would watch a 4-Ball tournament. I would watch a 4-Ball tournament all day. I don't know what it is about 4-Ball. Like, 4-Ball alone made me start playing Rocket League, a game I've known about for like as long as it's been out, but I've never tried it. 4-Ball, how much I loved 4-Ball and how much I wanted to just play 4-Ball made me try Rocket League, and now I love Rocket League as well. If there was an option to just go into matchmaking for 4-Ball, if I could just go into a menu and say, I don't want all these other games, just let me play 4-Ball over and over and over again until the end of time, I would do it. I love 4-Ball. So yeah, that was my Fall Guys Season 1 rounds tier list, the basis of which is I love 4-Ball, and 4-Ball is perfect and I love it, and I'm going to just keep talking about how I love 4-Ball apparently. That section's done. Do the outro. So yeah, I'm very excited to see what they're going to do with Season 2 of Fall Guys. I'm very excited to see what they do there. I really appreciate you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Stay strange, everyone.